We're recording. We are live. This is MCO Talk, episode 18. My name is Vincenzo Landino, your host. Joining me tonight are the lovely Amy Schmittauer, a.k.a. Savvy, Sexy, Social. The other guests with me tonight are two fantastic, wonderful people, Stephen Caggiano and Ralph Rivera. We are talking Twitter and engaging with Twitter. Ralph, we are going to just go through this really quick because we kind of started a little late thanks to Blab, trying to figure it out. Stephen, we'll start with you. Introduce yourself. Who are you? What do you do? Let our people know.
Yeah, for sure. My name's Stephen Caggiano. I'm a digital cat herder. I build Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram accounts for people and brands. For all intents and purposes, I do the grunt work in social media that nobody wants to do, but has to get done sometime.
So true. Somebody has to get paid to do it, though, right?
Indeed.
And I'd like to give you my money. You're so handsome. Ralph, introduce yourself. Who are you? What do you do?
Hi, guys. So my name is Ralph Rivera. I'm the co-host of the Web Search Social podcast with my business partner and wife, Carolyn. I'm also a partner, owner, and chief technology officer over at Triber, and I teach web development up at Manhattan College in New York City.
That's fantastic. My mic is, okay.
I was worried it was my mic that went off.
No. You did a great job. I love Triber, by the way. So
thank you.
Kudos, my man. And then I have the lovely Amy Schmittauer. Amy, introduce yourself. What do you do for those of us that don't know who you are?
Hi, everybody.
You should know who she is.
My name is Amy Schmittauer. I'm the founder and face of SavvySexySocial.com, which is a video blog for small brands who want to be better on social and video and digital marketing as a whole. I make 3 videos a week, and sometimes I podcast, and I travel a lot. What I'm doing right now is traveling, so this is what my set looks like today.
And I thank you, Amy, for jumping in with us. I just want to make sure, people that are chatting here, some people are having issues hearing. I think for the most part, most of you can hear us, so I'm going to continue with the show. We're talking Twitter, so let's jump right into this. Ralph, how do you use Twitter on a daily basis? What does your daily workflow look like with Twitter?
First question, though. What's Twitter?
I probably should have explained that this show was about Twitter.
Yeah.
It's an app where you can tell people, like, hey, I'm going to the bathroom now.
Well, give me about 15 minutes so I can look it up in Wikipedia. Twitter is a huge part of our workflow. Is your question how we use it on our podcast or how we use it in conjunction with Triber?
I want to know how you use it,
right.
Ralph. How do you do it? What do you do, whether it's with Triber, whether it is with the podcast, whatever it may be? If you have different ways of using it, let's roll with that, too.
Well, we actually have a bunch of homegrown apps that we use. As part of our podcast, we use Twitter, obviously, to promote episodes and to share content and to promote our guests. And we also kind of aggregate all the activity that is based on our hashtag or that's directed at me or directed at my co-host. And we use that to essentially keep pinging people. Because one of the things about Twitter is that people will often share something, but not necessarily interact with that thing. So they might share the fact that we just released episode whatever, but not really listen to it. So what I like to do is I like to grab all that data and then kind of tweet out to all those people that have shared and say, hey, what did you think about the episode? What was your favorite part? Ask them a question that they would not inherently have an answer to unless they actually listened. And most of the times I guilt them into going back and listening, which is exactly what I like to do.
Yeah, isn't it so true how someone made a comment, remember the days when Twitter DM meant something? I think that's interesting. Yes, Autobots destroy. But that was a great point. There is so much listening involved in Twitter, and I think a lot of us forget that. We have to actually listen on here because you can't just talk from a podium on Twitter anymore, right? Stephen, what about you? How do you use Twitter daily? I mean, I know, but tell everyone else.
There are several accounts I manage. First thing I do when I get up in the morning, I drop to my knees and pray. Then I hop up and I look for @mentions on all the accounts. So that's even sometimes before I go and hit the shower. Respond where it's appropriate. Then I jump into Twitter because I again, build Twitter accounts. So my first priority, because of the Twitter API, is to look at the clock and make sure I'm starting 15 minutes later than I did yesterday to keep a clean 24-hour window. Go through all the accounts, sweep people that haven't followed back in the last 30 days, then go back in to lists and follow for each of the accounts targeted followers in their space. Then I jump in and I become a social butterfly, hitting up all of the chats. So I'm very very social on Twitter. I mean, it's my main source of communication. Kind of sort of that's the end.
Yeah, and I mean, I know how engaged you are because if I tweet at you, I get a response actually pretty quickly. Sometimes I'm like, does Stephen ever walk away from the computer? But then I forget, we have the phones and stuff too. So we're always connected to it. And I love that you mentioned that in the morning you go in and you clear things out and you work on that first. It's so important. One of my tips a while back on an earlier episode was first thing in the morning or, first thing when I start working on Twitter is to respond to people overnight. And then before I go to bed or the last thing I do is go back and do the same thing, to clear it out and make sure that everyone's been responded to. I mean, it's so true. The old adage of, 24 to 48 hour response times, I think that's way out the window. That's been out the window a long time ago. And, Twitter has increased that response time. I know that there are some brands that require 20 minutes or less. And I'm talking in the hospitality space. I know from experience with some of my clients, they expect 20-minute response times for their guests and clients. So that's what we're dealing with here. Amy, what about you? I know that Twitter is not your number one because you are a YouTube guru, expert, ninja, fantastic person. But how do you use YouTube daily?
I think you meant Twitter, and you're actually completely wrong. Twitter is probably actually my number one. Like, YouTube is absolutely the place where my content lives and a lot of the conversation happens. But everybody that follows me on YouTube or at the website, they all know that Twitter is where they're going to get the quickest response from me, other than being on my email list and writing an email to me. But even comparing to that, Twitter is much faster. So I feel like everyone that follows the blog and the videos, a lot of them will comment on videos, but they will also tweet because they know that I appreciate them spreading the word about the content on social, but that I am just on Twitter all day long and I will totally reply to them much more quickly. I have to set time aside to reply to YouTube comments to make sure that I hit as many as I can. With Twitter, I can do that more on the fly.
Yeah, absolutely. We had some questions come in. I just want to make sure I talk to everybody here. Great answers, everybody. I mean, listen, no answer's a wrong answer. It's how you work it. Unless you're, of course, me and you tell Amy that she's not using Twitter as her number one tool. Sorry. Do any of you – so this is a great question. I'm going to take this from Daily Scope News. I'm going to kind of go off my bullet point list. Ralph, how do you use – or do you use Twitter to grow your business or actually, do any of you use Twitter to grow your business or more as a platform to keep your followers informed of what you're up to? It sounded like, Ralph, you kind of do both. I mean, we all do a little bit of both. I think you need to use it to grow your business. But, Ralph, how do you use it? Growing the business or more on the announcement side?
Yeah, it's mostly, for me at least, it's mostly on the announcement side. I mean, I run 5 different businesses, and then I have my own personal side. So it's hard for me to really say that I'm using Twitter to really grow any of those businesses. But it certainly plays a role in allowing us to communicate whatever it is that we're doing on a particular episode, or we've got something new with Triber. So we use it mostly for broadcasting, but also for two-way communications. We don't just broadcast and not listen back when people are giving us feedback.
Stephen, what about you? Growth or kind of listening, getting the pulse, and announcing?
Well, it's remarkable how many people take a look at follower count, and really you should take a look at the number of people I'm following, because I've taken on the responsibility of listening to that many people. And that really is that's the greater feat than the following, that I can be responsive to that many people. Like you said, you can tweet to me and I can respond pretty fast. And I'll introduce a statistic that I haven't qualified, but I heard it from someone I believe to be a reliable source 2 days ago. She said that Oracle data says that 71% of people on the internet expect a response from brands in 24 hours. And then Lithium data says that 82% expect a response in an hour on Twitter. That's pretty remarkable. And then it was Val Afshar's CXO chat or talk that said 87% of all B2B transactions that occur in the social space happen on Twitter, which I thought was remarkable. So I circumnavigate the space and try to find ways to be effective at those practices where they're already the most effective on their own. I try to be more effective, and that's my daily study. That's why I can never be an expert. I can never be an expert, a guru, a ninja, because I can be on my game today, but when I wake up tomorrow, first thing I have to do is find out what's changed, what's shifted, what's new, what do I have to address that's new today, and that means hitting the Twitter blog first, and then diving into my day,
Yeah, and not to skip Amy on this one, but you brought up a good point about followers and whatnot. And a lot of people are talking about fake followers, no engagement. But let's go this far, and I'll go to Amy on this one. What are your requirements before you follow somebody? So we know how important it is to have real followers and whatnot, but I think it also is so important to follow a real group and to follow people that are engaged with you. You can't just follow anybody that's not really important to your audience. So what do you do? Like, what is your strategy for that following?
Well, I have two Twitter accounts, and that just really originates from I joined Twitter personally like a really long time ago. And then when I started sort of diving into the marketing space and started the blog, I knew that the blog needed its own Twitter. And I kind of wanted to separate the two things because I didn't know how to navigate one against the other for a little while. I think now there's probably no reason to have two, but I just haven't changed that. And I find it useful because on the personal side, I really don't follow anybody unless I know who they are. And I genuinely try to use that account to stay tuned to what my friends and colleagues are doing. And I used to use lists for that a lot, but now I sort of do that on the Savvy Sexy Social side where my policy is a little bit different, where if somebody's like sharing the content, is totally engaged in comments and pays a lot of attention to the blog, and we tend to have a lot of conversations, I absolutely want to follow them because they're engaging the brand. They love what I do, and therefore I'm helping them. And that's really important to me. And it also means that I'm more likely to see notifications of that person when they engage me in the future, which they've absolutely earned because they watch the content, engage the content. So I agree. I think it gets really messy when you're like following versus followers, just because we know what the crappy side of that has been in the past for Twitter. But I think when you know your policy, everything becomes pretty clear.
Yeah, fellas, feel free to jump in on that too. What is your strategy on following, Ralph?
I don't really have one. I've tinkered a lot with a lot of different techniques and tools and things, and I've decided to just let it be organic. So I don't have a problem hitting the follow button. I don't have a problem hitting the unfollow button. I don't really set any parameters for myself.
I love that. That's a great point. I mean, that's amazing. And Stephen, anything else that you do differently?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm very methodical. I build lists in groups of 10,000, measure their probability of following back based on past behavior, and then build those lists in specific spaces for clients, and then go and follow them, knowing that I'll rapidly grow a following, and it'll be a targeted space. And I've got some cool clients that really have very specific space, and they're kind of big deals. So I have to be on point. It's not fun, but it's also not easy, which means it's a secure skill set. So yeah, I'm very, very, very methodical about my approach to the market space when it comes to following. One of the most valuable followers you can have is somebody that's going to click links to your content or a client content. That's kind of what you want in a large following. There was a time back in the day when Amy and I were part of Us Guys, and we had our morning rituals.
Such fun times.
It was great, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I realized that Twitter was really powerful when I got to about 20,000 active followers and could post a link and crash a website. And that was, that's going back quite a few years, but I realized how powerful Twitter could be. So I began focusing more on the targeted follower side, as well as being able to listen and respond to everyone that came through. When you understand call to action as it relates to Twitter becomes immeasurably more important as a communication tool, as a business tool, as a listening device, as a relationship builder. It's just incredible, really. And then when you get into targeting, you talk about new potentials that they're ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Ralph.
I'll disagree just for the sake of saying that I disagreed at least once with somebody during the show. Targeting is always a good idea, but if I could take the flip side to this, is that targeting on any social platform is increasingly difficult. And I'll give you an example. Dino Dogan, my partner, he was on a podcast recently, and he was asked about his affinity for pancakes, and he had no idea what the host was talking about. And apparently Dino had at some point written in one of his social profiles that he liked pancakes. And of course, he's written that he's a martial arts master. He's written that, he's written all kinds of things. He was the first person on the moon. But you can't trust that information, because people are very fleeting with how they describe themselves on social media. So we, myself and my business partner, my wife, who's sitting right over there, she says hi. We take a slightly different approach, which is not really to target specifically people, but to just allow any opportunity to present itself. Because at the end of the day, if I don't know someone likes my show, but they like my show, that's okay. I don't have to know so much specific. I don't need to have so much specific data about them so that I can keep hammering them. All I need to do is produce good content, and they'll come to me, or at least that's what I hope. So I don't think that's as much a disagreement as it is a nuance, but
hey, it's always good to have somebody that has a different point of view. We wouldn't want to hear three people that have the exact same thing to say. So,
if I may, just
yes,
a retort.
Oh, it's on.
Going down.
All the feels.
Pixel tracking data, for example, or even more important, in email capture. If I've got somebody that's been to a vendor's cart but didn't close for whatever reason, there's an opportunity to target them on Twitter and say, hey, where did we drop the ball? I saw that you had this in your cart. Something happened. Was it the price? Did you find a better price? Because we'll match it. Was it the background music? We would really love to, to have you in our family. What went wrong? And that's that could be an ambiguous Twitter card that's just out there, targeted to those people that have been through the checkout and didn't make it. And we'll capture over 50% of those and I don't think I would be a tolerable personality without producing those kind of results.
Right. Yeah.
No, absolutely. I had a couple questions come in that I do want to get answered for a couple people. Ross Kincaid asked, how do you deal with the crazies on Twitter? I know we're kind of sticking to the follower part, a little off the path here, but it's easier to ban people on Facebook, it seems, but without outright blocking, I guess you could just block someone. So how do you deal with it? Because you guys all have larger followings than a lot of people that are watching, right? Steven, you have a lot of followers. How do you manage that? And go ahead, answer that.
I think I've only ever blocked one person. And he just something just wasn't right. He had an internal dialogue that it kind of competed with the reality that I presented him, and there was just no getting around that. No reasoning with him. He would respond to statements that I never made, and I understand he coming off as awkward on my own. I know people's thresholds. Somebody that exceeds my threshold has to be kind of out there. Dino is a great example too. I love Dino. Dino's an uber eccentric. He's brilliant. You know, I at the beginning of the broadcast, I was showing you the Dino Dogan app.
Yeah.
So he's got an app where you can hear his stuff, hire him, or talk to him. That's awesome. He was the first guy. He was the first guy I knew to create his own personal app. You know,
So great.
it's like.
That's
So
fantastic.
if I could jump on the haters commentary, I've never blocked anybody. I probably never will. Those, and I'll use the word that you used, which is the crazies. That's kind of like the spice of life for me. Part of what we do when we're developing content, and I'm speaking kind of the royal we. I think in my mind, most people, they're developing their content through their experiences, and all of your experiences can't be good, number one, and number two, sometimes those bad experiences are what allow you to cultivate some better ideas. And also sometimes those crazies, sometimes they're right. Sometimes that whatever criticism they're giving you, or, even if it's just a complaint or whatever it is, sometimes they're right. There's sometimes hidden in there is a little speck of truth when they're criticizing either your show or your content or your look or the way you dress or whatever it is. So I try not to close myself out from that because I think that there's value in that. Plus, my really good friend Ryan Hanley told me that you don't have any success until you start getting hate mail. So
Yes.
when we started our podcast, when we got like our first batch of hate mail, I was like, yes,
Mhm.
yes, victory is ours.
Well, haters aren't the issue. It's it's bizarre, offensive behavior. That's the issue. I'm not opposed to criticism or even skepticism, but outright just mean kind of sort of nasty behavior that you can't. I just didn't understand it, so I blocked him, and that was the end of it. And I mean, I've got no animosity towards him.
Yeah, I think there's also. Sorry, Amy, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was gonna say I don't think I some people in the stream are saying like real players have haters, yo. Thank you, Kristen Cardos, for saying that. But seriously, does that mean like I've made it now? People are disagreeing with me. I mean, what does that mean to you that you have haters? Because Steven, it sounded like there was a little bit more of like some sort of weirdo, like truly weirdo. Is it trolls? Because we see that now a lot with live streaming, right? But I don't want to get into live streaming. That's not the topic of the show. Do we get a lot of these trolls? Because I don't see a lot of people trolling my accounts, but again, that's just me. I'm not there yet. What is it?
I think there's a difference between like a hater and a troll, and I think maybe a troll, they're all really offensive words apparently at this point. So I don't want to call anybody crazy. I will say that I've blocked I can count on one hand how many people I've blocked. And that's somebody that makes YouTube videos for a living. So I think that because of where I originate from, I have a very high, again, threshold for, what constitutes a block. And I've had people who have thought they were building a serious relationship with me over the internet that took it to a different level that I just had to say, look, this is a problem. But what I'm more worried about is that there are we're not going to talk about live streaming, but I think live streaming is proving that people don't want to deal with the fact that not everyone's going to agree with you. And I think it's a good thing when people don't agree with you. Just to give an example, by maybe a percentage, I beat Brian Fanzo as the best speaker at Social Media Day San Diego, but I had more negative written comments.
Cheap plug.
I'm just saying this is a play to that point. I had more negative written comments because I took a stand on whatever my point of view was, and people are going to agree with you, and there are going to be people that disagree with you. I mean, and Brogan's another testament to this. Brogan drew a line in the sand and said, I don't like Periscope. So now everyone's talking about Brogan because he took a position. So there's a difference between haters because you took a position and trolls because the haters are just, if they don't like your point of view, that's okay. That actually positions you more when you have people that don't agree with you. But the trolls, you just have to decide that something's not okay. What I'm worried about is that too many people are being called trolls on the live stream comments, and people don't know how to handle it because they're just jumping on live streaming for the first time, and they maybe haven't had to deal with this kind of interaction before, and they're just blocking people left and right. And I don't think that's healthy. I don't think we should be blocking people left and right just because the comments are real-time engagement. That's supposed to be the plus side. So you have to take the consequences with that, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good observation because now that everybody has access to this media, the one thing that I think not a lot of people talk about is that if you want to be on these live streaming platforms, if you want to be on, whether it's Twitter or Periscope or Meerkat or whatever it is, the one thing no one ever says is you've got to develop a thick skin. Because if you have a very, if you're going to be very tender about it, you're going to get insulted, you're going to get insulted, you're going to get offended. And what's going to happen is you're going to become a statistic. You're going to become that person who's not going to go beyond 10 episodes of whatever content it is you're producing. The people who manage to stick it out and count, hundreds of episodes of content, those are the people that usually have thicker skins.
Absolutely.
Oh, for sure. I mean, listen, anytime you put yourself out there publicly, right, whatever the app, but Twitter, I think, is more public, more forward-facing than any of the other, and I think that's why it gets also a lot of criticism, too, because people are afraid to use it because they think, oh, my God, the whole world is looking at me, which they can be, depending on what you're doing, but, you're right, you have to develop thick skin, and, Amy and I were having a conversation earlier because, I got a couple unsubscribes in my newsletter, and I was like, why did they unsubscribe from me? And she's like, really? It's one person or whatever it was. And I'm like, oh, all right, fine. So it's true with any platform. I'm speaking to my newsletter, but it's with any platform. So that is a great point. All of you, if this was around the horn, like Amir said, I'd give you all points. But how about this one? How do you guys manage your notifications? Because you guys all have a ton of followers. How do you manage that? What do you do? And Ralph, I'd love to hear from you.
I'll tell you, I don't have any notifications on anywhere. If someone calls me on my phone, it doesn't ring. If I get an email, there's no beep. I don't have any notifications on. I have way too many things to do in the day, and to have my phone bleeping constantly, I need to, and this is not something that came easy. Dino's pinging me. This is not something that came easy to me, but I have developed a kind of my own process for managing my time. And I know what my weakness is. I know that if during the day, if I need to be writing content or producing content or recording or reviewing a contract, whatever it is, if Facebook suddenly opens up on my browser, I'm going to lose 45 minutes. So what I do is I detach myself from everything. I only go to Facebook when I need to. I only go to Twitter when I need to. I block off time and I dedicate it to Twitter, to Facebook, to all of my different social platforms. And by the way, that really agitates a lot of our clients, because when they call me on the phone, they expect to get me immediately. And we actually wrote a post about it, and we had an episode about this not too long ago, where we basically said, yeah, as of today, don't ever expect to ever get us on the phone again, because you'll leave a message. We'll coordinate a time that's convenient, mutually convenient to the two of us, and then we'll call you back.
Oh my gosh, I love that you said that. I never take any phone calls unless they're scheduled. And I will say that I don't have Facebook notifications turned on because that's a complete waste of my time. But Twitter, I do have notifications for those who I follow. If they tweet me, then I do get notifications for that. But I am a huge believer in Do Not Disturb. I will leave Do Not Disturb on for half the day sometimes. Right. And sometimes on purpose and sometimes not at all. But there's so much, I want control of my day, especially when I wake up. And having Do Not Disturb on is probably the best thing that has ever happened most days, because then I didn't see texts and I didn't see tweets and I didn't see whatever Periscope crap happened until I get on. And then when it makes you realize that nothing's really an emergency, sometimes not even Twitter, as much as I love it.
Right. And Amy, another thing that I just kind of percolated in my head, you know, there are people that run around that are always complaining about the fact that their iPhones or whatever mobile device they have is always running out of battery power. Oh, I can't even get through half the day. And it's because they have all these notifications on. You know, your phone is constantly doing something. And
it has to think all the time. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I like, you know, this format where, you know, this is the 18th episode of the show, and it's a week, you know, it's a once a week. It's on a set time, right? And where it's integrated with Twitter. And if you really want to be active in Twitter, you're active during a specific time, right? During a Twitter chat, you make yourself available during one set of time. You know you're killing an hour. But I find that I waste my time the most with Twitter is when I'm just like, let me check to see what's going on, or let me see who's involved in what conversation. And then it's like you said, Ralph, you lose 45 minutes, an hour, and you're like, where'd the time go? I totally missed out on XYZ that I needed to get done. Or, you know, if you want to hear something really funny, I'm not going to call this person out, but I was having a conversation with someone. They actually missed, because they were so engaged in social media in the morning or during their morning routine, they actually missed their wife and kids going to the water park that they were supposed to go to that day by 2 hours. The wife and kids disappeared, and then he's like, I have to take an Uber to get to my wife and kids, because he was so enwrapped with social media. With social media. But I love the point you made, Ralph. Just turn off notifications altogether. You're going to go in and check it when you need to check it, right? So you're going to see it at some point if you really want to. You know, what is the point of looking at the phone? I mean, it's almost like Pavlov's dog. As soon as that notification goes off, we turn our heads, we jump, and we're jumping around. If somebody else's phone goes off, we're jumping around. And I couldn't imagine being someone like, you know, any of you three really, or even some others that have so many followers where you're like, how do you even look at it? So great. I'm going to try that. I will. I'm going to try it for a week and see if I can manage, if I still get
Also, I will say, like, in terms of desktop management, Vincenzo, you made an observation earlier when we were working together on TweetDeck. When I'm going through and checking tweets and replying to people and favoriting and retweeting, I clear those streams out because it does become so much to manage. So I get through everything I want to get through. I reply to as much as I can, then I clear it out, because as much as I can be on top of that, the most embarrassing thing to me, in my opinion, on Twitter is replying to somebody more than once. I don't want them to feel like they're not special, because if I made the time to reply to them and then I go and reply to them again, probably the exact same reply, like, that really sucks. So staying on top of it is great. I do know that Hootsuite has a great option for this if you have multiple users, which I've just made up a second user before, just so it'll show a little bar that says so-and-so replied to this. So it does show that has been managed. I definitely think that that's important when you do have quite a bit of activity to go through.
That was a cool little hack for me. I knew I could do it, but I didn't realize that, like, I should. And I saw Amy clearing out her TweetDeck notifications. I'm like, why are you doing that? She's like, well, this way it's gone and I don't have to see it. You're not. I know
it's there. I can always go back and look at it.
Yeah, it's absolutely. So to me, it was game changing, and I mean, it was such a small thing. Yeah. Is there such thing as too much engagement on Twitter? Ralph, let's go with you. Is there too much engagement? Is that possible?
Yeah, I mean, I think that probably the biggest example of that is when you are in a debate that you are never going to convince someone, to change their mind. At some point, you just have to agree to disagree. And I think that oftentimes people just want so much to convince the opponent that they're just on Twitter or whatever platform. It doesn't have to be Twitter. But that to me would be a good example of too much engagement.
How about you? How about you, Stephen? What do you think?
I mean, at the expense of your family, yes. If your time on life or online is jeopardizing in real life relationships, yeah. It's got to be a work-life balance that I'm on the unhealthy side of. But fortunately, my ex-wife has the kids the bulk of the time. But when they're here, I'm an under-engager, and when they're not here, I'm an over-engager. But I'm running 14 accounts, so I'm never lacking for an opportunity to answer a question 24/7. There's always something I can respond to. I've learned to categorize never let the urgent become the important. That's kind of big. And the other thing is you all kind of sort of always want to be listening, but you kind of sort of don't always want to be responding. You don't want to strike up an unnecessary conversation. I don't strike up gratuitous dialogues. I really just don't have time to be outgoingly friendly, but I am very responsive. And if someone tweets to me, I'll make it a point, even if it's just to send them a smiley face in response to their tweet. I try to be validating. So yeah, you could be too engaging when it's costing you something at home. I would say that would be the line for me. In terms of the market space, if you're being proactive, reaching out to people, you're probably going to come off as a spammer. And I would say that's the other side of being too engaging. My 2 cents on, and that comes, there is a bit of sentiment analysis behind what I'm telling you. And the bulk of that came from a company called Viral Heat, which kind of gave a thumbs down to overactive users.
Well, okay, so so you're saying that there is potential. Both of you said there's too much engagement, and Amy, I'm going to ask you this, change it up for you. So, do you respond to every single mention you get then?
No. But I was going to say there's no such thing. I'm just going to tack on to that last question, though. I don't think there's any such thing as too much engagement, because I guess I was looking at the question of like other people engaging me. And I also wonder if engagement might be the right word here. But no, I don't think there's anywhere near the possibility of too much engagement. I think it might be a little nerve-wracking when you're getting too much engagement in a negative crisis situation, or even in a launch situation, like, oh, this just went live, and then all of a sudden everybody's responding to you and you're sort of waiting for something to break or something like that. That can be nerve-wracking, but the beauty of it is that that's why we are doing this. So I don't think you can say that there's too much, but I try to get to everybody's. The only reason why I would feel like there might be too much engagement is I wish I could tweet every single person back. So when I can't, I basically just favorite it. So people are like, oh, she favorited it. She saw it.
Right.
Like, I just want them to have some indication. I saw it. I appreciate them. Thank you for being here. So I can't reply to everyone, especially because probably 30 to 40% of my tweets are automatically generated by YouTube when someone likes a video. So it just says, so-and-so liked a video on YouTube by Savvy Sexy Social, and then it'll be a preview of that video. And that is a huge deal. That's one of my biggest tips for people using YouTube, is take advantage of that link between YouTube and Twitter, and that some people that don't comment and don't really engage out loud, they'll click the like button and they'll spread the word for you. And that's tremendous. So anytime you can give them love, even though what they did was very passive, it's extremely helpful. So I think it's really tough to reply to everybody, especially when some of this stuff is automatically generated. But I try to do something at some point, especially if I've seen their name more than once.
I want to throw something else in here, which spinning around my head, which is just to kind of take the opposite approach here. Engagement isn't necessarily mandatory. Just because someone says something to you doesn't mean that it necessarily merits a reply, especially if it's confrontational or negative. But something Amy said made me think of a story with a colleague of mine. She has these automated messages on her Twitter account that will automatically, and she's worded it in such a way that when someone follows her, they get a message that kind of seems like it's organic. It's not, automated. And when they reply to her, she doesn't want to reply back, and she doesn't want to then engage with that person. That to me seems like I don't want to say terms of service, but it seems, to me kind of a violation of the inherent contract you have with other people on Twitter, which is that if you are actually creating this automated mechanism to kind of hook people in to a conversation with you, and then you want to then bail out of that conversation, then perhaps you shouldn't be doing that in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic point. And you know what? This is Tom mentioned this in our Twitter stream. So thanks to Cody. Shout out Cody for shooting this over to me. Said sometimes Twitter feels like a chamber of commerce meeting. Everybody's selling and nobody's buying. Tom Reed, thank you. I think he might be watching here, but that is a great point, my friend. There is a lot of that. So if you're not engaging, here's my thing. I'm going to answer this question a little bit as well. I don't think there's such thing as too much engagement. Yes, there's certain people you may not engage with for certain reasons. My personal take is that if I don't engage with people, I never know who – you don't really know who people are. That there's the thing. And for me, it's like if I don't engage with somebody because they're too small, I know that – and I'm not saying any of you said this. I remember that when I first was learning Twitter, the person who was kind of showing me around said, well, you really don't want to engage with people that are, don't have a lot of followers. And I think Blake made a comment here that some people won't even take him seriously because he doesn't have, or he's not over 2,000 followers, something like that, which I think is ridiculous. I mean, not every CEO, not every chief executive is sitting there with tons of followers. I mean, I know I had one of my former employers wasn't a powerhouse on Twitter, but this man had, was super powerful in the consulting world, had tons of money, if that means anything to you. And he had like 150 followers, like he didn't care about followers on Twitter. I think it's a little bit convoluted. So for me, I'm like, I want to engage with everybody, no matter what their point is. And let's face it too, Twitter's worldwide. So some people, I mean, they don't speak English, right? We're here, we're speaking English. So maybe their English is poor. And some people will be like, well, I can't engage with them. They don't even make sense. Like they're just a spammer or something. And not all the time. So I don't think there's a such thing as too much engagement ever. I do think I'm way too connected to it personally, though, Ralph. So it goes back to, like, for me, the engagement piece is just putting it's literally glued to me. Like, you guys are talking and I'm trying to tweet still because I want to engage with people on the Twitter stream, So that, in this case, I guess you're right. There's too much engagement. I should just put it away and engage with you three.
If you turn off all of your notifications for a week, that following week, you're going to feel like your senses are being assaulted.
Yeah, I'm a little worried. I am a little worried about this. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna try it though. I promise. I will try it. Hey, Periscope Ryan just jumped into here. Hey, buddy, how are you? Rachel Polish. I wanted to give shout outs to them. I know Dino's in here as well. Amir from Zoomf. Zoomf is our sponsor. Thank you, Zoomf, for jumping in as well. Here, I have another question. So we'll kind of change this over to a little bit of a brand chat. What brands do you think do a great job of engaging on Twitter? Any kind of brand, anybody at all, doesn't matter what industry they're in. Ralph, what do you think? Who do you think?
Let me percolate on that. Let me pass to somebody else for a second.
Steven.
Well, you know the answer I'm going to give, and that's I've been connected, and Amy has too, to Brew. Excuse me, Jonathan Brewer for years, and Be the Change Revolutions, and Amanda Height's team is just amazing at every turn. They're so loving. They're the kind of brand that you engage with, and Applebee's, for example, that you feel connected to the brand, and when you meet them in person, they're the kind of people that make you want to be a better person. And proud to know those people. Applebee's is probably my number one.
Yeah, I obviously wouldn't disagree with you there. I've been the face of Applebee's for a couple projects now, so they do amazing job. The reason I even got behind those campaigns with them was because I believed in what they were doing as a social team. Be the Change Revolutions, Amanda Height, like you said, Brandon Hill, Jonathan Brewer. I mean, those guys are crushing it daily for Applebee's. I mean, the engagement they have, the fact that they're a fast casual dining establishment with 1,872 locations. I mean, they're so big, and yet they're engaging with almost every single tweet that is sent to them. Facebook, Instagram. It's amazing. Tweet at Applebee's. I encourage all of you on here right now. I mean, something positive, and tell them that we sent you here. Whatever, that we're talking about them on NCO Talk. They will either favorite or they will respond to you, which is amazing. And what they do on their other social platforms, they feature their audience. So if I take a picture, they'll take that photo and they'll repurpose it and say, hey, this is our photographer. I think that's a fantastic example. Thank you, Stephen, for that one. Amy looked like she wanted to say something before. I didn't shut up.
I just would probably have a little bit of a different take on this. I think that anytime a brand puts a face at the front of social is a really good thing, because people do want to connect with a person and not just a logo. The logo's nice. So I think that one brand that has absolutely knocked this out of the park, and we mentioned this earlier on my Veda stream, is DKNY, Donna Karen, and her PR girl. Everyone knows at DKNY, everyone knows PR girl, and she just put out a book, Make Your Mark. I mean, this is a really fantastic situation where she's got 500,000 followers for the brand's name, but gets to be herself and talk about being a PR girl in the fashion industry in New York City. So it makes it a very personalized story. And it's super engaging account, and it's a great representation of the brand. So I think that that's definitely a little bit of a different take. Sometimes it's not necessarily how engaging in terms of the logistics of replying the brand is, but how engaging the actual storytelling is.
That's so true. Yeah, so many brands don't tell stories and don't use a face behind it, and that's what, going back to the Applebee's example, they actually have a response team that uses their initials in every response. So they've actually become personalities. So my favorite is ARD. I don't know who ARD is, but ARD is the coolest person, because when they respond to my tweets, I'm like, dude, this guy gets me, or girl gets me. So I think that's fantastic. Ralph, you percolated.
Yeah, I'm going to be the odd man out here, because I'm going to say that some of this is dangerous, because all the brands that we're talking about here that were mentioned, they all have something in common, which is that they have gobs and gobs of money. And I deal really in the small business space, and those small businesses, they can't do what Applebee's does. They can't do what Donna DKNY does, because they simply don't have the resources. To me, if what brand is more important to me, I would take the girl named Jackie, who has 24 followers on Facebook, but she got someone else to listen to our podcast and then bought Ryan Hanley's book because she heard him interviewed on our podcast. I would take one of her over 1,000 Applebee's any day.
I agree with you, but at the same time, I think it's such a cop-out to say that you don't have the resources, because all we're talking about here is putting a face with the brand and replying to some people. And I think every brand has that capability. But those were the differentiators.
Yeah, but let's
part of the challenge here was to come up with a brand that the audience here would recognize. And I immediately went to Applebee's, because everyone here.
I don't, for the record,
brands.
I'm not going to lie. I don't know the woman you were talking about. I can't identify with your portion of the story.
And listen, I don't. Nobody's wrong. Nobody's wrong. So there's nobody wrong here. Ralph makes a great point with small business. You're right. Small businesses may not have the resources, but small businesses also don't have the community size. So it's definitely a lot easier for them to engage with a smaller. So it's a lot harder for a brand like Applebee's or, like Blake mentioned, Buffer, to interact
Feels
at the
for Blake.
level they do and to interact properly with their audience at that level. I mean, with the amount of mentions coming in and emails and other platforms, let's just face it, it's more than just Twitter, and they're still responding. So I do agree with you. Yes, there's a small businesses doing it right, and that's perfect. But there's also the big brands that, let's face it, if an Applebee's wasn't doing it, we'd all be sitting here. They'd be on our list of brands doing it wrong, right? So it's almost a given. They have the pressure on them, too. They have to respond because you'd be sitting there saying, damn, you know what? They have the effing resources. Why aren't they responding to me? You know they have people behind there. And how much does it suck when brands are doing it so poorly online, when they're not responding to their audience? My friend Eric Clark had this experience with one of those subscription boxes for men. And he was tweeting and Instagramming, and he must have hit this brand on every possible level, right? Not a huge audience at all. They had maybe about 400 followers, but they're, who knows? It's probably two guys in their basement. I don't even know. No response. Zero response. Then the larger brand responded, and then the larger brand that he was trying to reach out to, they ended up responding to him. So I think if you're doing it wrong, you're doing it wrong, whether you're large or small. If you're doing it right, you're doing it right. So that's where I want to agree with both of you. Go ahead, Ralph. I know you had something else to say.
It was kind of a tangential thought, but one thing I wanted to mention is that with smaller brands, smaller businesses, their storytelling, to me at least, seems a little bit more organic because they're not being so meticulous about their storytelling. They're kind of doing it in real time. You're seeing their ups and downs as it happens. Whereas with big brands, those stories are more tailored. They're being created in a boardroom somewhere, and then they're being sold to the public. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but there's a very big difference between the story that Coca-Cola is establishing and the story that the local guy who does siding and windows is telling. And again, I'm not trying to say that one is bad or good. It's just that those are two different types of stories that convey a different type of organic quality.
As we're talking,
I'm a fan of the organics. Can I introduce an ideology here?
Please do. This is what MCO Talk's all about.
Yeah, Jim Collins was a fancy lad that wrote a book called Good to Great. And he said for any company to go from good to great to rocket, they had to master merchandising excellence, product superiority, and customer intimacy. And each one of the brands would have to master one of those and be competitive in the other two. We're in a day and age where merchandising excellence and product superiority is remarkably expensive for everyone, but customer intimacy is free. There is no excuse for any brand to not excel in customer intimacy. And if they don't have the dollar to support their merchandising excellence and product superiority, they can be a master of customer intimacy if they really want to.
Can I tell a quick story?
Yeah.
So the intimacy thing made me think of this. We actually told this story on our podcast today. My mother-in-law, she called a pizzeria that was not in her immediate geographic area. This is some time ago. She asked them if they sold flour, flour that's specific for making pizza, and the pizzeria said, no, we don't sell that. And she hung up and went about her business. About an hour later, the phone rang, and it was the pizza shop that she had called. They saw her number on the caller ID, and the owner of the pizza shop said, well, we don't sell it, but I can tell you where to get it because I know that, people like to have that. She was able to connect with the the company, was able to buy this very, very specific imported Italian, whatever it was. And since then, she has driven out of her geographic area to go to this pizza shop because she felt an intimate connection with that shop, because not only did she reach out to them, but once she, in her mind, thought that this conversation was concluded, they called her back. They initiated a conversation again. So we need more of that in the social space. That's the type of intimacy we need, not just hitting the like button or sending out an emoticon.
And how much of the pizzeria's marketing budget was spent on that gesture?
Oh, $0.0. But it gained them, loyal customers. My mother-in-law has 6 kids, so between her husband, her 6 kids, that's a lot of pizza money.
Yeah, and for a small brand, having that is incredible because word of mouth will spread to the community. Hey, go here for. So yes, that is an amazing story, by the way. Love that, because it goes to show, to Steven's point, that it doesn't cost anything to respond, right? It doesn't cost anything to engage with your audience. And you know what? When you're listening, you're listening. If you're listening correctly online, you're listening correctly, whether you're big, small, individual. I know we are a little bit past the hour, but because of my ineptitudes at Blab for the evening, I do want to ask you two last questions. One being, just give us a favorite person you have to follow, or favorite maybe 2 or 3 people that you follow on Twitter, and let's get their names out there and so other people can follow them as well. Amy?
Oh, I don't know. Hold on.
Steven? Ralph?
I'm enjoying the heck out of Adam Dintz these days. He's the host of Spoof Chat. One of the most loving, funniest.
Adam Dintz.
Yeah, I'm a big Adam Dintz fan. What he and Tigga have done, Jermaine, with Spoof Chat is just I'm not gonna lie, it's stupid, but it's so enveloping that it's hard to look away from. It's hard to walk away from, and they are so loving and so knowledgeable that you have to take them seriously as people.
Yeah, for sure. And listen, Spoof Chat has actually started already. So everybody that's here, jump on to Spoof Chat later, because those guys are awesome. I was actually talking to Adam earlier today. Just such a knowledgeable guy. I would agree with you there. Adam is a great follow, and he's just funny. I think, and Ralph, if you don't know Spoof Chat is basically the anti-Twitter chat. So it's a Twitter chat about making fun of other Twitter chats, and they do it in such a loving, I think, respectful way. Even though some people, if you don't get it, you don't get it. It's probably harder to do what they do than to do this, because we're just talking about what we talk about daily. They're talking about it, but putting a huge twist on it. So lots of love there. Awesome one, Steven. It's Adam Dintz, ADAMDINCE on the Twitters. Ralph, do you have a favorite follow?
I like Ian Anderson Gray. He's a repeat guest on our podcast, a friend of mine, and he's British, which by law means that he's smart.
Just the accent makes you so much smarter.
That's right. Although I did find out recently that he's technically Scottish, not British, but
there is a big difference. Yeah, there is a big difference there. Amy.
Okay, so I follow all cool people. So I'm going to shout someone out that I've never shouted out before who totally deserves it. Her name is Amy Brown. She is Columbus-based and does social media for Wendy's, which is also Columbus-based. And she has just 3,000 followers on her account at ARB. But she's probably the funniest person I've ever followed on Twitter. So I just want to give a shout out to somebody that probably doesn't get enough love, is also from Columbus. And everyone knows I'm very proud of my city, and does really good work for Wendy's Social.
Awesome. I am going to give a little bit of love to, there's a few people I want to give love to, but, man, the 3 of you are on here already, so I'm going to give love to somebody besides Kristen Cardos and Cody Stevenson, who have community managed for me. How about Yarby? My buddy Yarby, at Yarby, he's such a good dude. He just started live streaming. He took he took my advice and started live streaming, and he's just a funny guy.
And he looks like Jake Gyllenhaal.
He looks like Jake Gyllenhaal,
which is the only reason why you.
Yarby is the creative director over at Social Fresh, but I don't know. I don't think he puts enough time into his own personal brand that he could, because he could be potentially huge. And he's just a great guy. Like I said, he's Kristen approved. Amy approves of his Jake Gyllenhaal looks. Everyone can approve of Yarby. I love Yarby.
McCarby.
Schmickharby. All right. Well, listen, last thoughts, anything you want to shout out, anything you want to promote that you're working on, please throw it out right now. Ralph, go.
Websearchsocial.com is our podcast. We'd love everybody to come give us a listen. We're actually gearing up over the next couple of weeks. We're making some really significant announcements about Triber. There are some major things happening that I can't talk about yet. But it's going to be exclusively announced on the Web Search Social podcast.
Love it. Thank you. Steven, what are we shouting out tonight?
You know what? I'm going to shout out catching up with Dino Dogan and finding out what it is that Triber has on the in the works. I'm curious about that. They're always worth looking into. Always something creative.
All right, I'm going to spill the beans. We're going to enslave all mankind and use you all as food.
All right.
You heard it here first on MCO Talk. Triber is enslaving all of mankind and using us as food. I'm scared. I'm going to stop using Triber now.
Please don't.
I'm totally kidding. Amy, what are you working on? What do you want to give love to? Anything? You have 15 seconds, 20 seconds to do that.
I'm going to give my shout out to the lovely host of this evening, Vincenzo Landino. Congratulations on the launch of your first course, streamin15.com. I'm so proud of you.
So I'm going to give my shout out to my lovely cohort here, Amy Schmittauer, because she is an amazing enough credit for. She has walked me through getting email marketing set up for my business. Most of you may know. If you don't, I went off on my own about 5 months ago and started my own business. She's really helped me streamline what I'm doing, helped me get my email marketing set up, and helped me launch Streamin15 live streaming course for those looking to go from zero to strategic streamer. So thank you, Amy. Love it.
You rock, kid.
That's for you. Steven, appreciate your support over the numerous episodes of this, and as well as everything else, the Applebee's campaign and just Twitter in general. Ralph, really, seriously, I'm so glad Cody introduced me to you. I really appreciate you jumping on the show tonight.
It will be.
Oh, it's, I'm going to upload it to YouTube. I guess what I have to do is pause this stop this recording, and then I will upload it a little bit later for viewing, and I'll have it up on vincenzolandino.com with some show notes for you to check out as well. On behalf of myself, MCO Talk, and Zoomf, our amazing sponsor, have a great evening. I guess we have feels here, so I can't say peace, love, and hearts. I'm going to say peace, love, and feels. How about that?
All the feels. Hashtag all hearts.
And I just need to say this because
feels on fire.
the prettiest person on the stream tonight on this recording is Ralph.
Oh, that would be me. Thank you.
I thought it was the doll in the background.
Yeah, it's because I have the puppet. It's the puppet that won. By the way, that puppet is Janet.
Than anybody.
That puppet is Janet Johnson's fault, by the way. I'll tell you that story next time.
Well, Rachel says, I'm feeling you. I love it. We have feels on fire. Sean, who actually is the CEO of Blab, says, Blab, brains over beauty. BBB, we are better than the Bitter Business Bureau. This is Blab, brains over beauty. Have a great night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.